My name is Catherine Foley and I'm going to read today from my book Beyond the Breakwater, and today's chapter is chapter 40, Secrets of a Lost Diary. I recently came across an old diary I kept in the mid-1980s. My entries are cryptic. It's clear I was not a diligent or consistent diarist. There are short, awkward bursts as I try to strike the right tone and experiment with words and style. On Saturday, the 10th of August 1985, I describe heading home to Ring from a day's shopping in Dublin with my sister. The train is crowded, I wrote. People are standing. The sky is grey and it has rained a few times today. Poured. This country is getting more like Yugoslavia every day. Crows and nettles, rain and grime. I had obviously started to see the world at that stage. It is the travelling element of life back then that surprises me most. In one entry I wrote that we went to Clonmel to shop for a dress for my mother who was going to a wedding. Halfway home we ran out of petrol. The forests were burning on the mountains and we could see the flames from the road, I wrote, obviously drawing strong parallels between my life and War and Peace. In another entry, I described Miriam and I thumbing home from Cork, which was then about a 2-hour journey. It seems it was a freezing, bitter day and it took us hours to get home. We hitched rides from 8 different vehicles, all hyphenated by long waits in between. It seems we had been to a party in Ballincollig where I was heartless, giving a man in navy blue cords and a tight jumper a phony phone number. The jumper was pulled down to cover his pot belly and fat bottom, I wrote. Clearly, the cruel objectivity and disinterest of my youth was fully intact when I wrote it. This was before I bought my first car, and I realise that travelling by bus was central to my life back then. In one entry, I describe a day we went to Dublin on the express intercity service. RoseAnn and I left at 7:45 a.m. and headed off on the 3-hour journey, zigzagging along a winding secondary road, pulling into stops in towns along the way. From Waterford we went to Thomastown and then Kilkenny. We slept on and off, trying to make ourselves comfortable in the upright seats. I recall an incident of someone suffering from a bout of travel sickness, which was a fairly common occurrence in those buses. In Carlow, the driver gave us a few minutes to dash in to powder our noses or grab a cup of tea in a little coffee shop at the stop. We were stiff-legged by the time we pulled in again at another stop in Castledermot, County Kildare, to leave out some passengers and get another chance to stretch our legs. It was here in a pub that the preserved arm of the strongest man in Ireland was on view in a dimly lit glass case. As we entered Dublin, we sat up in our seats to take in the sights. Passing Heuston station, the adrenaline started to pump, and the combined effect of the traffic, the cyclists, the lorries and the olive green waters of the Liffey had us wiping clean the fogged up windows, too exhilarated to be nonchalant anymore. Crossing over O'Connell Bridge, we were pulling into Busáras in no time, and it was still only 11:05 a.m, I wrote. After that, we walked up towards Henry Street and Arnott's. I remember how shopping was always a key part of those trips, when we'd rifle through rails of clothes, jackets, tops and coats in the hope of spotting a bargain. I also list Grafton Street and Powers Court as ports of destination. Then it was off for a rendezvous with Miriam, who was studying in Dublin at the time, and we had to drag ourselves away from all the boutiques, jewellery and shoe shops along the way to be in time for coffee in Wynn's Hotel. I write that we couldn't stop laughing when Miriam unwrapped our mother's tea brack, which we had carried with us for her. There and then she cut into it, making no attempt to hide her activity from the waiter who was leaning against the counter nearby, keeping a weather eye on us and our foostrings. It was coming up to tea time and getting dark outside when we said goodbye to Miriam and made our way back to Bus Áras. I record that we got home that night at 9 p.m. An entry from another day. Back in Dublin, I described the rain and a bus stop where I alighted amid people in transit, criss-cross lives that make patterns, infinite knots and tangles. Budding writer that I was, I added that it was futile to try to stop the zigzag, make meaning or give structure to the haphazard, effortless, onward running trail of lives in the capital. Standing on the footpath, I tell myself that I can dissolve into its orb or ricochet away. As I return the diary to my bookshelf, I think that perhaps it's worth holding on to and that I won't toss it away just yet. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening. And tomorrow we'll post. I've read the next 2 chapters already, so we'll post those on the next 2 days, and I'll be live again on Saturday. So that's all for now. Thanks a million. Bye.